Road, Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and we're at a place near the Gray's Gallery, which used to be a church, which is where Loy Ownby and his family used to attend. And right past that, there's a road that goes up the hill, and it's called Glade Cemetery. And that's where we are now. Except right now we're looking at what used to be a water fountain by a school. The school where Loy attended and his children. And there's the old pump that used to pump the water. And over here is where the school building used to stand, and that's two of Loy's children, Steve on the left and Paul on the right. And we're going up to the cemetery to see where Loy is buried. On the way up to the cemetery on the left is the old outhouse. There were two of them, right, Paul? Yeah. And that's the ladies. What made it the ladies? Just because it designated them, or did it have a closer? There's the old foundation. And here's the guys' outhouse. A two-holer? Two-holer. Two-holer. Now you say that this was Loy's first wife?
Yeah, and their children.
And their children. And there were how many?
Three.
3 children.
They all died at childbirth.
And they all died at childbirth.
And the third one passed away.
So Lucy didn't actually die in childbirth. She died from July 8th, which is when the third infant was born. And she died September the 14th, about a couple of months later. And then it was after the third child died and after she died that Loy went to the infantry.
In the Army.
Went to the Army. And that would have been in 1942. Okay. This is your grandfather?
That's Dad's dad and mother.
Okay. And this whole area is the Ownby part of the cemetery. And this is, to orient where we are in the cemetery, the peak in the dark blue that you're looking at, that is called what?
That's Big Dudley.
Big Dudley. Now, if you left Hunter Hills...
That's the mountain that's not dead ahead of it.
Right.
If you go down that trail, I don't know if you ever hiked up there, but you go down the trail up in where the horse trails are.
Yeah.
Where the riding stables are for the hill. And all the trails go up around that peak there.
But if you left Hunter Hills and drove out to the sign...
If you're pulling out the sign, you look straight ahead, that's what you see.
That's the peak that you would be seeing. And to its right, though it's a bit foggy right now, is Mount LeConte.
Right behind it's LeConte.
Yeah. So what's the view that Loy has in his resting place is one that he used to hike to, you say? You say he worked for the park?
He actually built the trail shelter at Mount LeConte. He was a trail foreman for 15 years, seasonal.
Was this after the service then?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then he left there and he packed horses to LeConte for a year. Then he went to work for UT in '64. You never know he was in the military.
Never have known it. That night in 2006 when Ronnie Venable started speaking about all that stuff, it was just like, who are they talking about?
You know, and he was part of an elite group. They were really the first Army Rangers special forces ever. You know.
Is that
right?
First
group, they were. They did, extended training like in Pikes Peak and Texas, and then they went. He told me that he rode a troop ship for like 50 or 55 days going to Calcutta, India, with 3,000 troops. That he had to ride that ship on. And then once they got over there like in November. They trained from November to February in India before they started engaging the Japanese on the Burma Road. Then they hiked 1,000 miles on the Burma Road. and they were always cutting Japanese supply lines. And they were just sort of like a guerrilla force, you know. There was 3,000 of them. He just happened to be one of the ones that survived. But they fought the Japanese from February that year in '44 until August, February, March, almost 7 months in that 1,000-mile trek.
Now, knowing Loy, his taking on such a, quote, adventure sounds extreme. Was he distraught after the death of his wife?
And the group he went into, they were, you know, they wanted someone. You couldn't be married, you couldn't have children.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he'd lost all that, you know. So, I mean, he was the perfect candidate. And they told him going in it's going to be like 90% attrition, you know. And that's exactly what it was. What they didn't lose to, you know, the gunfire and malaria got a lot of them. Killed a lot of them too. So, but you would never know it talking to him. He was so humble about it. You know? And it wasn't really until his later years that he started opening up.
Even to the family.
Even to the family. Yeah.
Yeah. Was it when the article came out that had he started opening up before?
A little bit more at that time, because he got pneumonia back in. Mom had got real sick with her hip, and she was in St. Mary's for like 73 days. She had a Hickman catheter in her chest. She had infection on her system. He had to be down there every day with her. So we were shuttling, and I worked in West Knoxville, and we were shuttling back and forth every day. And he got pneumonia, and we almost lost him then, back in, I guess it's late 99, early 2000. Then they started doing those articles on Fred Brown did for the Sentinel. And I called Fred up. I said, you might want to talk to my father, you know. And I gave him a little background. He was all for that. And he said, yeah. He said, when the kind of meeting, you know. But then that's when they did that big article. They were doing an article a month that whole year to honor the World War II veterans. You know, it was, and I told Paul, I said, I need to call this guy. So I called him up and I said, you might want to talk to my father. Well, Paul was in Vietnam during the Tet Offensive back in 67, 68. And even after that, he really didn't say a whole lot about it. I mean, you know, it was later, after Hunter Hills and after he retired, and he just never spoke about it much, you know.
Right.
He just never would know it. But we were thinking about a way to try to honor him in his memory. So we came up with this headstone. It's pretty unique. And it's the flag, the American flag, and the stars, and red, white, and blue's all etched in the stone, and it'll never fade.
Well, then the article on him, it was probably one of a unique bunch of men in this area, or were there other from the Merrill's Marauders?
Yeah, there was a few out of this area, wasn't there, Eddie?
I don't think it's in Sevier County.
Not in Sevier County, but I mean, in the East
I know
Tennessee
there's one in
area.
Knoxville because he used to come up
And visited.
and I forget his name,
But how many survived out of that?
300.
300?
Less than 300.
Out of 3,000. Out of 3,000 troops.
And by the time they
They
did
said
this
300,
article,
less than
there
200.
probably weren't that many left.
I mean, most of them are gone.
Yeah.
I mean, because you figure 3,000 men, 300 of them come back. It's not a good ratio.
To imagine Loy there is, you just can't quite imagine Loy there.
Right.
What was his reaction afterwards? I mean, was it something he was sorry he did, or?
I think he was really.
No, he was sorry he did it.
I think he was really proud of what he
He's proud of what he
did for his country.
did for his country.
Yeah.
That's,
And
that's his,
you know, I think later in life that really struck home with him. You know. You know, at the time, you know, it's like Lou and I were just talking about. I mean, Dad really never mentioned any of this till later in life.
no, he wouldn't talk about it.
He wouldn't talk about it. And he wouldn't, you know, go into any type of detail about it.
He had post-stress real bad.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was wondering. Did he just bury all of that then when he got back? And
He tried to.
yeah,
But you know that comes back to
sure.
the haunt you, you know.
You know, because, like, you know, Paul was over in Vietnam during the late 60s, and he went through some of that himself.
I'm
To
sure.
a certain
Not,
extent.
not as bad as what
Not
Dad
to what what Dad went through.
I feel like. But those guys are just, they're heroes.
Well, when he got back, about what year was that?
44.
44. And when did he marry Beatrice A?
45, because you were born 46. 1945.
45. Uh-huh. And what was her last name originally? It's her maiden name.
Our mother,
Uh-huh.
Ramsey.
Ramsey. Oh.
Yeah, it was Ramsey.
And then, what were the last days of Loy like? What happened in the end?
Well, like I say, he'd gotten pneumonia back in 2000.
2001,
Then,
2002, about 2002.
and then his health sort of went downhill. But he had gotten a blood clot in his leg,
His foot and something.
and it grew and grew and got larger and larger. He didn't tell any of us about it, of course.
Of course.
And this was like in August, September. And now this went on for probably 6 or 8 weeks, and Paul and I found out about it. So on Veterans Day, 2003, we decided we were going to confront him with it.
We had
Because he was stubborn, you know. So we had a good little intervention with him, and sat down and talked to him about it, and told him, he needs to do that for us. He wouldn't even go to the doctor with it.
Yeah.
And his leg had really swollen.
Oh.
Well, at that point, they immediately put him in the hospital, and they put him on all this Coumadin and all this blood thinning agents, and that started working on his kidneys. And then late, he was at the hospital, and he came home a while, and then went back, and we were pulling duty, staying with him all the time. And they told us about, a week or so before Christmas, he probably wouldn't make it through Christmas.
Yeah.
And we decided to take him home. So we
Good.
brought him home. We brought him home.
I'm sure that's where he wanted to be.
Yeah.
And we took shifts, took care of him. He suffered a lot, around the clock. It was tough, watching such a strong, gentle man,
Yes.
Yeah.
go through such a painful experience, But it, it made us all closer, and then he survived through Christmas, through the first of the year. Then
He actually, even though he was too sick to get around, he actually forced himself to get up and come in to remember Christmas.
Christmas Day, yeah.
He actually forced himself.
got up and
he
come
was
in the
really
living room
able
on
to
his
get
own.
up. He got up on his own and came into the family room
Yeah.
to have Christmas with us.
Yeah.
It was that kind of tough
Mhm.
guy.
He was tough. Yeah. But
After that, it went all downhill.
it went downhill, and probably it was probably January 28, 29. In that range, we had to admit him back to Baptist Hospital
Yeah.
across the river from U2.
Uh-huh.
When we asked him, he said he wanted at that point in time to go along with his wishes as to whether or not he wanted to go back to the hospital alone. He'd refused to do that, and at that point in time, remember, I went down there the other day, and I told him, I said, Dad, you look awfully bad. I said, is there anything we can do for you? And at that point in time, he said, well, sis, take me to Baptist. So when he told me that, I called Steve, and Steve called their other sister and all, and then we all met, and then we took him on to Baptist, and that's about a week before he died.
Yeah. Then we sat around. Of course, we pulled 24-hour shifts around the clock with him. And we all got a chance to say goodbye to him. That's really important.
Really important, yeah.
But it's it's always tough losing someone like that. But he's we know he's in a better place
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
It's,
But he did suffer quite a bit. He was he's a well-loved and well-liked human being.
Yeah.
He's still, we got a big void there.
I guess. Of course, there were a number of events in Loy's life that none of us know about except for maybe y'all. But the two that now loom in my mind are his time in the Merrill's Marauders as a very difficult, hard, very bad time. And then his Hunter Hills days, which were in a way almost a reward
Exactly.
oh, yeah.
for those kinds of days where he was greatly loved out there
yeah.
still.
Well, y'all were his family.
Yeah.
You know, you
We were another kind of
That was,
family, right?
that was his happy place.
That was
Yeah, it was. Really, I mean, he loved that place.
He loved
didn't
it.
he?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
He would not leave it. I mean, he
Yeah.
would stay
He
there.
loved all
7
y'all
years.
too.
But he loved what he done, and you know, especially y'all. I mean,
Yeah,
that really was a driving force. For
it
something.
was.
And Mr. Fields.
Yeah,
Fred
He
Fields.
loved
Yeah.
Mr. Fields.
He thought the world of him.
yeah. They were born 1 year apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't know if you know that. But he had lived in this area, you say, because that down there was the old schoolhouse,
Right.
and that was the church they attended. And where exactly did y'all live in those early days?
Where we lived about 2 miles down Boogertown Road.
Off of Powder Mill.
Powder Mill.
Uh-huh. And so when there was a need in '66 for somebody to be at Hunter Hills, because he already lived here,
Right.
he was sort of a logical choice
Exactly.
to position him there. So he left where was his home at that time? On
Powder Mill.
Okay.
Right. And we left there and moved over here about the time Paul was going into the Army.
Uh-huh. And you were in the Army most of the early Hunter Hills days.
Yeah, from about 66, 67, 68. I was
Uh-huh.
in
Now he
military.
came back and worked.
I worked
up
up Hunter
there.
Hill. I worked up there with you guys a little bit.
Yeah.
But part-time.
Yeah, in the summer.
I was going to college then, and I worked up there.
When he came back.
And I enjoyed it too. Thought y'all was great. The old popcorn machine. You know,
Oh yeah,
concession
I can
stand.
smell it now.
And a drink.
Those were indeed the
Yeah.
good old days. When you say the good old days,
Yeah,
that
they
is
were.
definitely a reflection of what some of them were, at
Yeah.
least in our little group of people.
Right.
You know, in this time of year we was talking about earlier, it reminds me, I can see you and Andale and the whole troop out there practicing this heat. You know?
Yeah.
And
Oh,
everybody say, let's go to Greenbrier.
Yeah, the rocks. That was the place
Go
to
the
go.
Rocks, yeah.
Yeah. And
Well, I
you,
mean,
you were just a kid then, weren't you, Steve? You
Well,
were.
I grew up there.
Uh-huh.
I was 10 years. I moved there when I was 8, 9.
You were that old?
9,
Uh-huh.
And then I was there from 66. I was just getting ready to turn about 9 years old. Yeah. I lived there from the time I was 9
2 grades
to
back then.
66, and we had plays through 76. Is that right?
77.
77.
Mm-hmm.
So until I was 20 years old, and I worked there every summer. You wouldn't know it, but this gray hair that you said you seen.
Yeah, that's amazing because you're still just a little teen running around the Hunter Hills area to me.
It's funny how those memories stay in your mind.
They get fixed, don't they? But it's a nice fixation.
It is.
And I appreciate y'all coming up because I think there are others going to be really interested in this because
We appreciate you. Appreciate you.
all of us hold, in some degree, that memory and that love.
Exactly. Yeah. He's a special guy.
Yes,
He touched a lot of people's hearts too.
I would say. He will be remembered by many for a long, long time.